There is a precise moment when a person realizes they are not being taken seriously. It does not arrive with a shock. It does not require drama. It slips in through a small, seemingly insignificant detail. A sentence spoken over you. A decision made without consulting you. A joke that passes too easily as if it were permitted. A calm, let us handle it, delivered without hostility. That is exactly what makes it dangerous, because it does not feel like an attack. It feels normal. In that moment, a weak reaction appears, hard to grasp. Not anger, not revolt, a vague tension like background static, and almost everyone does the same thing with it. They ignore it, rationalize it, bury it under the idea that maybe others meant no harm, that it might just be a misunderstanding, that, in time, things will settle. This is the first error, and it is a structural one. Underestimation is not a temporary lack of information. It is not a gap that will be automatically filled by competence, effort, or correctness. It is a conclusion. It is the result of a rapid, unconscious evaluation made before what you know, what you do, or what you can do ever matters. The human mind does not operate on evidence. It operates on probabilities. It decides early who you are and then filters everything through that decision. If you have been categorized as safe, predictable, easy to manage, nothing you do afterward will change the frame. You can perform better. You can become more competent. You can be right. All of this will be reinterpreted so that it does not disturb the original conclusion, because the mind does not seek truth, it seeks stability. Most people believe they are underestimated because they did not express themselves enough, because they did not speak clearly, because they did not assert themselves, because they did not step forward. The reality is colder. You were seen. You were read, you were evaluated, and what you transmitted did not signal risk, it did not signal cost, it did not signal consequence, it signaled availability. Underestimation appears where others feel, not think, that they can make mistakes in relation to you without losing anything, that they can delay, that they can ignore, that they can minimize, without tension, without real reaction, without cost. It is not a rational process, it is a sensation of safety. And safety, in power dynamics, is incompatible with respect. Biologically, the brain is built to classify quickly, threat or non-threat, dominant or subordinate, decision maker or background. There is no category for valuable but ignorable. That is a story told afterward to soothe discomfort. In reality, if you are not perceived as having impact potential, you are automatically moved into a safety zone for others. And safety produces relaxation. Relaxation produces inattention. Inattention produces underestimation. The irony is that many underestimated people are disciplined, intelligent, responsible. But these traits, displayed without frame control, become signals of conformity, of adaptation, of the desire to function inside the system rather than influence it. And systems do not respect what functions well within them. They respect only what can disrupt them. The moment someone underestimates you, your primary instinct is to correct the perception, to explain, to demonstrate, to bring arguments. This impulse is old. In primitive contexts, being misjudged could mean exclusion, so the mind reacts quickly. But in modern dynamics, this reaction is exactly what solidifies the other person's position. Because the moment you feel the need to prove who you are, you have already accepted the role of the one being evaluated. Power is never on the side of the one who explains excessively. Explanation is a disguised request for validation. It is a, "let me show you that I deserve this." And the other person automatically becomes the judge, even if they say nothing, even if they appear polite. The balance of power has already been set. People who are not underestimated do not feel the need to define themselves verbally. They allow behavior to create friction, to create questions, to create small cognitive discomfort. And discomfort, for the human brain, is far more threatening than any clear demonstration of competence. Underestimation persists where your reactions are fast and easy to read, where irritation appears immediately, where the desire to be respected can be heard in your tone, where justification comes before it is requested. Each such reaction offers free information. It reveals exactly what matters to you, exactly where pressure can be applied. Those who control the dynamic are not necessarily more intelligent or more moral. They are less reactive. They understand something simple. Visible emotion is predictable, and predictability is the basic currency of social control. Many people confuse calm with inertia. They believe they are self-controlled when in fact they are avoiding discomfort. They wait, they hope, they let things pass, not because they choose strategically, but because they do not want to create tension. And this avoidance is felt immediately, not analyzed, felt, and it is used. Underestimation is maintained by small concessions made consistently. Accepting delays, tolerating jokes, excessive flexibility, each seems insignificant. But together they build a clear impression. There is no resistance here. And where there is no resistance, there is no need for respect. A hard truth to digest is that people do not treat you according to your internal value, but according to the anticipated cost of interacting with you. If that cost appears low, their behavior reflects it. If it appears uncertain, they adjust gently, not through words, through attention, through tone, through pauses. Underestimation is not about who you are. It is about what you allow to be projected onto you. And this does not change through declarations or grand gestures. It changes through fine control, through rhythm, through silence, through refusing to react where reaction is expected. Underestimation is not about who you are. It is about what you allow to be projected onto you. And this does not change through declarations or grand gestures. It changes through fine control, through rhythm, through silence, through refusing to react where reaction is expected. The moment you see this mechanism, real discomfort appears, the realization that many of your reactions were automatic, that you confused good manners with concession, that you believed you were being authentic when you were in fact conditioned. This clarity does not bring comfort, but without it, there is no exit. Underestimation does not disappear when you become better. It disappears when you become harder to categorize. When you stop delivering expected signals immediately. When your presence stops being comfortable for others, not hostile, just neutral, calm, unhurried. This is the foundation, not a technique, not a quick strategy, but a change in the place from which you react, or more precisely, from which you stop reacting. This is where the real shift of power begins. Underestimation is not maintained through a single visible gesture. It is maintained through a series of small daily confirmations, almost invisible. Things so banal they appear irrelevant, a reply given too quickly, an explanation offered before it is requested, a constant, non-negotiated availability presented as normal. None of these are consciously analyzed. but all of them are recorded. And the human mind is extremely efficient at building a coherent image from apparently insignificant fragments. People believe they are evaluated for what they say. In reality, they are evaluated for rhythm, for timing, for what they do when they are not explicitly observed, for how they react when they are not the center of attention. Underestimation stabilizes when your rhythm is always synchronized with others' expectations, when you do not create delays, when you do not force adjustments, when everything flows too easily around you. There is a particular comfort in the presence of someone predictable. The brain relaxes. It stops anticipating surprises. It stops mobilizing resources. And relaxation, in power dynamics, is incompatible with deep respect. Respect appears where there is vigilance, subtle attention, controlled uncertainty about consequences. One of the most exploited instincts is the desire to be reasonable, to be the mature one in the room, to not exaggerate, to understand the other's perspective. These traits are presented as absolute virtues. In reality, they quickly become levers against you when they are not supported by firm limits. Reasonableness without cost is an invitation to be pushed. People who underestimate test constantly, rarely through direct confrontation, usually through small deviations, an extra request, an ambiguous joke, a decision made without consultation. Each test asks a silent question: how far can I go without reaction? If your reaction is minimal or emotionally unclear, the test is considered passed, and the next one will be slightly larger. Most people miss these moments because they are subtle, because they do not want to seem sensitive, because they tell themselves it is not worth creating tension over nothing. But these nothings are precisely where hierarchy is fixed, not in major confrontations, but in small, repeated adjustments accepted without resistance. Power does not manifest through intensity. It manifests through consistency, through reactions that are rare but predictably firm, through refusing to be drawn into unnecessary explanations, through not negotiating what should never have been negotiable. When these are absent, underestimation becomes stable, almost permanent. There is a common confusion between being accessible and being available. Accessibility means you can be approached. Availability means you are always open to adjustment. The first creates relationships. The second creates loss of status. People who are not underestimated are accessible but difficult to move. They have an internal structure that does not instantly bend to external pressure. When you are underestimated, you are constantly asked for small adaptations, to wait a little longer, to make another compromise, to explain once more. Each request seems reasonable in isolation. Together, they create a clear pattern. You adjust, others remain firm, and the one who adjusts loses the frame. A clear sign of underestimation is when your decisions are treated as negotiable, while others' decisions are presented as final. This detail is not accidental. It is an implicit evaluation of your position, and it will not change until your behavior introduces a real cost to this asymmetry. The cost does not need to be conflict. Often, the most effective cost is withdrawal. No reaction where reaction is expected. Slowing where urgency is expected. Absence where presence was assumed. These destabilize more than any direct confrontation because they cannot be attacked head-on. People feel comfortable underestimating someone when they feel that person is always there, that they do not disappear, that they do not withdraw, that they do not break the dynamic. Continuity without conditions is interpreted as weakness, regardless of intention. The human brain associates value with rarity, not effort. Those who are not underestimated are not necessarily harsher. They are less emotionally available for small games. They do not invest energy in correcting every deviation. They choose carefully where they intervene. And precisely because they choose rarely, their reactions carry weight when they appear. Underestimation is also fueled by internal language. The silent dialogue where you tell yourself that maybe you are exaggerating, that maybe you are too sensitive, that maybe it is not the right moment. This dialogue is not rational. It is a mechanism for avoiding discomfort. But avoided discomfort inevitably becomes lost position. A particular quiet appears when you begin to observe these things without judging them, without blaming yourself, without trying to fix them immediately. You simply observe. And in this observation, the automatic reaction begins to weaken. It does not disappear instantly, but it slows. It becomes more distant. As the reaction slows, a small space appears between stimulus and response, almost imperceptible. That is where real change begins. Because in that space, you can choose not to play the expected role, not to deliver the prepared line, not to confirm the existing image. People pay far more attention to what you do not do than to what you do. If you do not respond immediately, they feel it. If you do not explain, they feel it. If you do not rush to repair a minor tension, they feel it. And they begin to wonder why. That question is the beginning of respect or caution. Underestimation begins to erode when your behavior no longer aligns with their internal narrative, when the data no longer confirms the hypothesis, when small inconsistencies appear, not dramatic ones, just enough to create cognitive friction. The mind hates friction, and it tries to resolve it through reevaluation. This is not a visible transformation from the outside. You will not receive confirmations. You will not receive apologies. You will not receive clear recognition. You will notice only subtle shifts. Tone becomes more careful. Requests are formulated more prudently. Decisions are delayed until you are consulted. No one will verbalize anything, but the dynamic will have moved. At this point, the temptation of satisfaction appears, the feeling that you have won something. It is a trap, because satisfaction can pull you back into reaction. It can make you visible in the wrong way. Real power remains neutral. It observes, it adjusts, it does not attach to outcome. Underestimation does not disappear forever. It can reappear in new contexts with new people. But once you recognize the mechanism, you are no longer trapped in it. You see it early, and you no longer invest emotionally where it is not worth it. This is the stage where control truly begins to shift, not through force, not through declarations, but through the absence of old reactions, through calm that asks for nothing, through presence that does not explain itself. From here on, things become colder, quieter, more precise, and far more effective. At this stage, something essential has shifted, but it is not visible on the surface. You have not become tougher. You have not become more vocal. You have not become someone else. You have become less accessible to other people's projections. And for the human mind, this is deeply destabilizing, because people use projections to navigate reality quickly. When those projections no longer work, a silent uncertainty appears. Underestimation does not disappear through a clear breaking moment. It disappears through erosion, through the fact that old interpretations no longer produce expected results, that small tests no longer pass, that jokes no longer land, that decisions made over you no longer flow smoothly. No one will say, "I underestimated you." The mind does not work that way. It will only form a vague conclusion. Something has changed. This change is first and foremost internal, because you no longer feel the impulse to explain, to position yourself verbally, to clarify intentions. You've already noticed that intentions matter very little in power dynamics. What matters is only what is perceived as stable, costly, or unpredictable, and you have stopped being comfortable to categorize. An uncomfortable truth becomes evident. People did not underestimate you because they did not know who you were, but because they were allowed to believe they could operate without taking you into account. The moment this is no longer true, their behavior adjusts automatically, not out of morality, out of interest. The adjustment is not emotional, it is mechanical. Relationships begin to rearrange. Some become more distant, others more respectful, some disappear entirely. If you look through the old filter, this feels like loss, but if you observe coldly, without attachment, it becomes clear. You are not losing relationships. You are losing other people's habit of treating you as a fixed element, as something guaranteed. Underestimation needs stability, certainty that you will be there tomorrow in the same form with the same reactions. When this stability disappears, not chaotically, but through controlled withdrawal, people become more attentive to you than they ever were when you tried to be visible. A new silence appears in interactions, longer pauses, more carefully phrased questions, fewer assumptions. These things are easy to miss if you are still seeking explicit validation. But if you observe without haste, it becomes clear. The frame is no longer imposed on you. It is implicitly negotiated. Power is not a title and not a role. It is the ability to modify others' behavior without direct intervention. And now, this begins to happen around you, not because you asked, but because you stopped offering the reactions that made the old dynamic possible. A crucial aspect of this phase is emotional detachment, not indifference, clarity. You no longer interpret every gesture as being about you. You no longer search for hidden intentions. You see patterns, you see structures, and when you see the structure, emotion no longer takes control. Underestimation works best when you personalize it, when you believe it is about your value, your shortcomings, what you did not do enough. The moment you see that it is a general mechanism applied to anyone who offers certain signals, something breaks. You are no longer caught in it, you simply recognize it. People who are not underestimated are not immune to testing, they are simply less invested in outcome. When tested, their reaction is not defensive, it is neutral. Sometimes there is no reaction at all, and this lack of emotional investment shifts the balance, because the one who tests feels they no longer control the stakes. The stakes are the key. Underestimation appears when others feel the stakes are low, that nothing important is at risk. When you no longer treat interactions as critical to your self-worth, the stakes move, not for you, for them, because they can no longer obtain what they once did. It becomes clear how much social behavior is built on subtle emotional exchanges, validation for acceptance, availability for belonging. When you step out of these exchanges without replacing them, the dynamic resets. Some people do not know what to do with that, and they withdraw. This withdrawal is not failure, it is a filter. Only those who can function without diminishing you remain, without consuming you, without treating you as an emotional resource. The quality of relationships changes even if their number decreases. This is not a strategy. It is an inevitable consequence. Underestimation no longer appears as a threat, but as an early signal. When someone begins to treat you with excessive casualness, you notice immediately. You do not react, you do not correct, you adjust access. In most cases, that is enough. There is a cold maturity in this way of operating. It is not spectacular. It is not satisfying in the short term, but it is stable. And stability is what allows power to exist without effort, without the theater of conflict, without justification. At this point, you no longer seek to be understood, because you already understand the game. And once you see the game, you are no longer absorbed by it. You play rarely, deliberately, or not at all. And this freedom not to play is the clearest form of control. The final stage does not bring triumph. It does not bring recognition. It brings quiet. A quiet that comes from no longer being pulled into dynamics that do not serve you, from no longer reacting by reflex, from no longer offering energy where there is no real reciprocity. Here, underestimation has nowhere left to attach, because the internal core that wanted to be seen at any cost no longer exists. Only observation remains, and choice, power in its final form, is not expansive. It is compact, silent, stable. It asks for nothing. It explains nothing. It simply exists. And from that place, every interaction becomes an option, not an obligation. Here the circle closes, without noise, without grand conclusions, with a single cold clarity. The game never changed, only your position within it.